Welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. We're here at the beautiful Church of the Palms in Sarasota, Florida. My name is Kathy Futrell, and today we're going to be painting turtles underwater. Come join us. All right, welcome. So I have an image, actually I have two images, the turtle in water, and these were taken in an aquarium, of course, and I'm not planning on drawing the grate here. This is a finished example. And basically, sometimes I think about water as covering up what's going on with the life underwater. But I'm just going to sketch, and then we'll give a little hint of the blue. But see, even in this photograph, I think that you have the idea that the turtle is swimming in the water without really putting, camouflaging it with a glaze. So last week we talked a lot about different techniques. And one of the things I want to stress today is the ability to draw and compose our designs to fit the space. And so where I'm getting started right now is the head of the turtle. Gosh, his eyeball is really close to the front here. And he has kind of a pointed mouth. I'm also trying to get the character of this eyeball, and I'm without losing the white that's in here. So I've kind of sketched that big eye. I'm emphasizing it just a little bit more and paying attention to where that little small, what do you call it? They're not wings. Fins, thank you. That's right, they are called fins. And then this shape, this is a sea turtle, so it's swimming, and it has a very graceful glide through the water. I'm hoping I didn't start sketching this too high. I might actually tilt its body a little bit for a better composition. Now, you notice that I've kept it away from this edge, but now I'm looking at the edge being pretty close to there. So we don't want to look, we don't want the tail running off over here. So we have to plan for the space. So I might be showing you what not to do. Well, let me see if I can just make this work. So the breast of the turtle and the length here has, I'm really just letting my eyeball look back and forth at the shape of this fin. And the turtle has, of course, a shell. And I am bringing that shell up and letting it kind of come to the back. I feel like I have drawn this turtle quite a bit smaller than the original watercolor rendering of it, but I think maybe I'll do something with the water to make it more interesting. This shell has quite an edge to it, as you can see here, and then it really dips down. I have to sort of follow with my eyes what's going on. This is very dark in here where this back fin, sort of like a foot, and it has a very interesting shape with lovely patterns, almost like a giraffe. And then this comes back and a tail, this is shadowed, a tail emerges. So I made it a point to not let that be too long, and I hope I didn't shorten the turtle too much. There is some pattern going on to the shell, and because we've seen a lot of turtle shells, we know that those patterns look like plates with spaces between them. And because this is pretty dark, I'm following these few lines that I see, and even the belly here of the turtle has some more of those lines, okay, to distinguish it. So, I have another fin here, and I'm going to just let this one be a darker shadow rendering. So I just decided, because of what happened with my turtle being so small in the water, I needed to make the water more interesting. As a matter of fact, I was just looking at Sig's watercolor of her turtle, and she had, sometimes if you think about it, it would be lighter up here perhaps and maybe darker. Remember, I'm leaving out the grid because this was within a tank. So let's get started with the painting. And I'm going to begin with the painting the turtle. And I'm going to apply some color just as some base coat. There's a lot of yellow. There is also some burnt sienna. And obviously it's not going to be quite that heavy of burnt sienna. But there is a gray for the body. And my favorite gray is always a blue-brown. Now that is the dark. So now that I have this wonderful puddle of dark, which is where these areas are going to be, you see my color, it's just really dark, but there's a hint of green right here on the belly. So I am also going to show some shades, lighter shades of gray by adding water over here to this puddle. And I'm going to clean my brush and pick up a little bit of the green. So I have my colors laid out, and I shall begin by picking up where I see the yellows. So the head is going to have quite a bit of yellow. It has yellow along, and I didn't really draw the pattern on this particular fin, but the beauty of this is that you lay in the under paint and then we can come back and do the pattern. So here I'm going to add where I see all of the yellows. This is very light on this fin, so I'm just going to apply the yellow here. This is going to be so dark it won't really matter what color goes there. I'm going to put a little glaze of yellow, come back and pick up my green, and keep that sort of suggested. And here in the shadows of this fin, I'm going to just apply this yellow-green. I know that it's going to end up with much more burnt sienna and some dark. So I'll start by leaving the edge of light on that fin and coming to the gray. So let's pick up some of that gray right here.
It's right here.
The gray has some blue in it. And I'll just let that run right
I'm just doing this
to the brown. So it's already dark. And then here we're going to there's quite a few lines, so I'm going to revert to my round brush here in just a moment. I'm following some of these darks, so I'm looking for the darks, leaving some little lines that will help suggest the patterns that are within the shell itself. Here it seems like, now that gets dark in here. I'm just going to make this, let me add a little more brown. This is the gray, but I wanted it to have a feeling of brown and dark. And as this moves toward the lighter green, the underside of the belly, okay, now this chin also has some dark. I'm going to switch now to the little round brush for the more detail. And let's get a deeper brown that we can use for these little patterns. So this is dry. So it's kind of fun to do your fish. In this case, we also have the idea of the shark. You remember, if you wanted to be challenged, the shark is basically, this is not a finished watercolor, but you can see I have done most of the work for the shark, and I'm still getting lighter and still too light in the background. I threw in a few little baby fish, and that's kind of a fun thing to do. This turtle, by the way, could be a more detailed background with fish floating if you wanted to. I'm going to stick with the photograph for now. So I have picked up a brown that's a little heavier, and although I didn't sketch my little patterns here for this fin, I'm just going to follow. Again, it makes me think of a giraffe, but these are turtle patterns, not giraffe patterns. And they do take on a little shape of themselves, leaving the yellow as a linear pattern. So in other words, we couldn't put the yellow on top of the brown, so what we're doing is we're painting negatively and keeping the yellow as our linear pattern. The linear pattern then looks like a line that's been drawn, and all we're doing here is painting the little shapes that we see. Alright, so this gives us the sense that there is the pattern going on with that fin. I am not sure there's much pattern going on here, but I do see, and I'm going to lighten this a touch, there is a bit of pattern on the top of the head. And again, I leave the yellow showing through as the line. And I'm just making little square rectangle shapes, which play across the surface of this turtle. Now, I probably could have put a little more yellow in the head here, but there is some little dots and textures going on. So I'm just imitating some of the things I see. Now here are a lot of lines, and we'll come back with a darker linear pattern that I see with my darks that I have here. Let's paint some of these light brown shapes that we sketched that make up the turtle shell. And I just add a little water to my burnt sienna. The burnt sienna seems to be the right color for this. Lovely burnt sienna. It's amazing, you don't even have to mix to make that beautiful orange-brown if you have that color. Obviously, taking blue and brown, if you take an orange and a blue, you will make a burnt sienna. Of course, it takes a lot more orange. The blue is just what tones the orange down. So now I have a bit of the patterning going on with the turtle shell. I wish I had put a little more yellow in the background of that turtle shell. Now I'm going to go pretty bold. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to finish doing the patterns on the leg here, this back fin or foot. And there is a sense of a roll. The roll happens because this is the edge, so I'm playing with the patterns as I see them and putting these little rectangle shapes, and they do make up some different, large and small. They're not all the same size. Looks like a little web of shapes here, and they go down into the foot, and then there's a little separation between this webbed foot, and they get smaller as they pop up here and bigger as they come down to the web here. And these are very light, so I'm just going to put a little water on my brush, put a few more spots. This is very, very pale. They're just hinted at here. Okay. Now, I don't really see a lot of pattern in this back foot because I think it's all shadow. So we're going to go over the darks now. So the turtle is taking on a little more contrast by the blue and the burnt sienna. This is very dark right here. This is probably my darkest shape, and I'm contouring against that other foot that's in the foreground, and this becomes kind of a silhouette of the turtle. Now, it's fun to draw, and once you have the sketch, then it's just a matter of observing what's going on. This is now underneath. I'll come back and do the tail in a minute. There's a lot of pale blue on the tail that seems to be unique to the whole turtle. This has a dark shadow here and comes around. There's really even an oval appearance of what the foot has movement out of the shell right here. So I've kind of captured that shape. Now, I'm looking at what's going on right here. There is a darker line, but it certainly doesn't have quite this much contrast. I'll have to do a little blending here. The shale does make a dark line in this space, and this tends to come out. What I want to do right here is to take a little water, maybe this Rayer wash, and do the blending now. So I'm going to soften that up, and I'm going to also bring that here on the breast part and add a little more shadow to come this way. Here. And it is taking up some of the detail by brushing over that. Now, you see how contrasty this fin is, so we're going to add a lot more of the dark. And if I will be a little more careful with my blue surrounding the turtle, I will be able to capture the edge that I lost just right here. And I can cheat and just simply draw that edge again to help keep myself from forgetting that it has that light, very light edge. Okay, this comes and does a nice little dark shape and follows a little bit of a line here and comes around. I want to soften that by bringing water to the edge of that. Do a little softening right there and continue over here. I see some blue. I don't know if it really is blue or if it's just part of the shadowing, but I want the blue to be in there. And here is where I will start drawing some of those lines with the edge, the fine tip of this brush. This is quite dark. Okay, so you see it's almost like an elephant leg. There's all kinds of creatures that have this rough surface for their skin, and the turtle definitely here in this part has wrinkly skin. I don't see a lot of line pattern or texture. It seems like I can see a dot or two in there, and those are little dark spots. This, I'm going to accentuate this line a little bit more, and this line, just to push the darks. So we're always building from dark to light. Excuse me, did I just say that backwards?
Light to dark.
Thank you. Whoa. Yes, please. Sometimes I'm so lost in the sketching and the painting. It is light to dark, always light to dark. Every now and then you'll want to try to put dark in ahead of the light, but more than likely the best pattern, the best approach is keeping the light first and then bringing in the dark. I'm adding a little water to sort of soften these lines that I've just made about the turtle. Okay, another place that's very dark is right here at the mouth. He's got kind of a little expression going on. He's got this
smug look.
Very smug look. You are so right. And then he's got just a hint of happiness. There's that little line right there. And then here it gets pretty dark. We could almost say he's smiling. And then this jaw, probably brought that jaw down a little too much. And just continue with the dark. And it's pretty abrupt, this edge of shadow that's hanging on here. And that's what this is. It's just a shadow. And there's a nice line here. It's more of a brown for a wrinkle in the neck. And I do see the back fin, just barely, is a dark shape. Or at least there's a dark shape. I am assuming it's the other side. And I'm going to darken just a bit here. Whoops. As this line is this fin will crisp up that edge. And let's add a touch of water to that. Okay, so let's finish with the eyeball, and then we're going to the water itself. This is a dark line and a dark eyeball. So I'll start with the dark part. I have left a little more light than is actually seen in this, and I probably just made his eye a little big too. And that's okay. For me, that's kind of a good thing. I don't know what these little shapes are, but I might as well put them in. And around, right in, getting darker in that little spot. And then I'm going to put a touch of brown here. And I think I better do the tail, and I'm going to call the turtle. Sort of, I feel like he needs a little more yellow right in here. Let's do that before I get the green going. So there is a bit more yellow in the turtle. I've just added that to the shell. And I'm going to let a little more yellow bring that down here. You know, there's also a feeling of blue, but I guess I can do the blue when I get into the water. Now the blue that I talked about, there is some black at the bottom of this tail, and there's linear patterns as the tail goes like so. And I'll add a bit of blue. I think the blue is just sort of a dry brush blue. It's not a lot of, it's not a solid color. It's just kind of a dry brush. So I'll put a few strokes of the blue. And, you know, while I'm at it, I did see some blue in here. So let's add that to the green. Now, the water is next, so let's talk about how we're going to make the water really work as the composition. I've made my turtle so small that I need to make the water exciting. So I'm going to clean this area, and I'm going to make several different shades of blue. Instead of just making this solid as a cerulean blue or cobalt with cerulean in it, I'm going to set up several variations of the different blues. So here is my cobalt, okay, which is a wonderful blue, and it's very Mediterranean. There is different blues on my palette. Look at this blue. It seems very similar to that one, but it's more of a turquoisey. Here is, I have to look and see, oh, it's faded off. Oh, that's my Joe's blue. And that's an American Journey paint. This is my cobalt, yes, look at the cobalt. And this is my ultramarine. So there's just slight differences in the paint of these colors. So what I thought I would do, oh, I had made a light spot up here. So let's just add a lot of water to this area as though the light is coming in to, let's just leave that puddle and see what happens. So the light is coming in, and sometimes what you can do, if you get a lot of water, you can just sort of dip it and let it run. And it'll, you know, I don't want the dark at the top, I want the dark at the bottom. So I really should be running it this way. Let's just let it be what it wants to be. And maybe, I don't want to get too carried away here. I want to let it just happen. Let's go with, let's skip some, no, I think I can't skip. I think I have to go next to it because I do want the water to run together. So I'm going to just make shapes of water. Now, you notice in this one, I had drawn some lines, but I really just worked the whole range as a graded wash or a wash. wasn't much change, which is a graded wash. A graded wash usually goes from a light to dark, or dark to light. Yeah, let's let this go and keep working with some different blues. And thank you, Sig, for showing your turtle painting to me this morning, or this afternoon, because it inspired me to try to do something a little different with my background. And maybe after class, Sig can show you, if she doesn't mind, her photo of her turtles, a double turtle swimming. So I'm just making these colors overlap and run together to make the background. I have to dip every now and then and pick up something new, and I want to keep some light on this tail area. And I'm working, you know, sometimes you can add water and just paint wet and wet. I'm doing a wash, which means that I'm working wet on dry. And because these lines will allow me to stop, for instance, like right here on this line, then it allows me to work around. And because this is so dark, I could paint right over that. And I don't want my lines to go up and down. See, you noticed I was sort of working around that fin, but now I want to move my lines in a water flowing feeling. So the shapes are going to be totally, you know, taking around the shape, but at the same time moving across in a water direction. That is the flow of lines horizontally. Okay, so we're still just mixing different colors and going with the next range. I didn't mean to go so dark, but actually I like it, so no pun intended, I'll just go with the flow here. So I keep adding different values, and this is the lighter blue, which is the cerulean. It's an opaque color, but I'm adding the water as I go. You know, another thing that might be kind of fun, especially in these areas that, now because I'm getting into the bottom, it's boring, I need to do something. Let me see what will happen if I throw a little water in here. Throw a little water in the water? I wonder what would happen. I believe I'll get some little spots, and it will definitely make this more interesting. Up here where it's dry, I'll get dark spots, and where it's still wet, I'll get water spots. Now, I've already made this background a little more interesting because it was going to be dull, and it's simply my fault for making the turtle so small. Well, that's what we do sometimes, is that we just have to adjust the plan. And I think I better get some variation in the color, so I need to go a little darker. And I want this to continue as something much more interesting than just straight across. And it just requires dipping my brush in. And I'm almost done. So I just want to speak to you about the different background I used with a shark, in case you are inspired to do your own painting next week, since we will not be here. We'll be back again on the 30th. I hope you will join us then. So I could do a little bit more splatter and keep this interesting too. And I think, I know for a fact that I'll probably map this in quite a bit closer. And one other thing I do want to do is I want to incorporate just a little bit of blue into the turtle to let it connect to its background. There was already a touch of blue in the tail, But see, that little shed I added there made made some difference. And I think the reason why this belly has a sense of green is because it was yellow, and the blue overlapping it made a difference. Oh, I just took a little off because I overlapped a bit too much. I want to keep putting more of the blue into the turtle, and I think we're going to call that done. Okay, so what I did here with the shark, and I'll just mention that the shark background was a lot more texture because it had the coral. So I was taking my brush, almost like using my green and blue, and I was rolling the brush. I was doing some texturing, not on top of the shark. Let's get, matter of fact, I think there needs to be a lot more contrast with the background against the shark to make him show up. See how dark it is in this one little area? And then it gets even darker down here. So this is a different approach of the underwater, and I think it all depends on your photograph, your reference. But the shark was sketched just like I did the turtle, and then I had these cute little fish, which I'm sure will turn into little colorful fish, or they'll be blue because they are underwater. So you just play. Oh, and I also tried to create a sense of light coming in. So there is light across the top here. I'm not sure what that is. I think that's just a flaw in the design of the photo. All right, thank you for joining us today. Hope you have fun. This is starting to look like snowflakes. It's a good way to make it look like snowflakes. All right, have fun doing your turtle.